Oh, you can certainly see it. Again, I'm just going through my case. I'm just reading the Bill of Rights for funsies while I have it in hand out here until January 22nd or 25th to just stand on it. Anyways, Congress shall make no laws respecting or respecting an establishment of region or prohibiting the free exchange thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to take petition of the government for a readiness of grievance. And I'm pretty sure that you got me on that one. I mean, you definitely tagged me because I was out there protesting, using my freedom of speech on the internet, where you're going to say that there were rules written, but not to say that those rules would even apply to what context, and not even the context, just the literal statement in itself to be threatening in the manner when, again, you definitely had to get me to the point where I called the cops and other things in the office. I gave them, the night to call me. I called them early in the morning, gave my thing, tried to do it peacefully, did the video so I wasn't going to be called a liar, act like a butthead. Um, and going through that, I should be one of this militia. Why do you have a problem like this in the office that then turns around to me doing more work or more issues? Because when we get into the 13th, 1-3, some SCP mathy stuff on prime numbers, you got to know C33, Gödel's incompleteness theory, and hole in the Constitution. Well, you got to know how the framework works on the and or D flip flop, Maxwell Demon Gate thing to really be able to say, well, then what that is to say that these are more open-ended terms. I saw that grievance, I spotted that grievance while trying to do something peaceful about it. You get retaliated like it's not a thing, and or some of the fraud or collusion that would go into the logic or the current or the voltage that uniforms why those electrons flow or why there'd be a spark to the gap on the issue because ones and zeros. They were trying analogs. And remember, the particle slit experiment was actually started with a candle. Yeah, that was. You're turning wick into energy just like a light bulb does. It's just different. Those rules will apply. And that would get you into the Second Amendment, not necessarily being that it's about guns, but you certainly took my strategy, Nicolas Cage next, of my house defense, and you've changed that in a world where Carrington events and wave functions, particle slit experiments, and crossovers, and things are definitely happening at the world at large because of issues like this coming down the pipes. And not only did you not address it correctly as far as which Sharps officer you got to take that up with, you told me lies and collusion that did not specify the problem when I was there, that did give you time up until the point that I wanted to bring legal representation into it myself and began to call around before I've ever even had one conversation with somebody else about it, which would have been Jake. Gave me a friend request and IM'd me. We had a short conversation. I didn't even friend him. I had 5 friends at the time, a girl I knew from way back when, and a couple of guys I really have no clue about, but I was just trying to get back out of the hole, which now I couldn't collude with them if I wanted to. It would have been the idea that I have to separate my voice from them and some of those other features that say maybe these guys were doing something weird, and because they were doing something weird, not only did they want to do that, but they wanted to list me as a felon to make sure that, in an equal opportunity over 2 weeks where you have one candidate, me, regardless of the circumstances, with no qualifications listed into what job it is. Basically, you told me to be a part-time god in that ad. And that's the nature of not listing your transparencies or omissions about that state. We'll get into the third one. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered into the system. Well, I'm still being quartered. I'm basically in a fractal position of the world. Big delta, little delta. If my lawyer doesn't take to it, if the system dragging its feet that keeps missing my meetings that I would have to go to ask for the proper documentation so it comes up in the minutes at any point in time in the vote while I'm protesting for those models, because it's not the weapons model, it's the 1 and 0 model of what it does. Fourth, No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime. Well, I'm being held to answer for one of these crimes. Never went directly to this court system. Well, it's a problem. Not necessarily the change in venue, but it gets us into the fifth and the sixth of why would I need to say anything about what this is when there's mathematical grievances about the backlog on how you chose to handle the situation. They came in to try to arrest me but didn't. I mean, why would you send 4 cops deep to talk to somebody unless it was to harass them into a change of a standard or to arrest them? Why would you come to their place of residence without a warrant? What was the warrant to get them there the first time? That's going to get you in that fifth and sixth. You're holding me now out until the 22nd. You had a change in venue already of the first of the year, and the OP restraining order goes out until 3/25 something, and that's a bunch of different meetings that I would never be able to go to actually come up and do this peacefully or any other model. Let's take for a second to think about the statement that the prosecution it may bring to light as far as their statements for the arrest and what they might bring to light on the subject. The seventh, in common law, that would be in a jury in front of my peers. Would I believe that this is what that's going to do while I'm holding out till January 22nd there, 25th, about I feel fine about the Walton people. I mean, again, when I bring to the evidence, the ad in the newspaper, the video I brought to it, if they're, I come to find out I got to get more evidence for it because I got to get a new lawyer at my own expense. Well, then that's what the evidence I have to do. I'd have to have the lawyer foray it because I don't have access to the building or make phone calls to them because the judge signed out a restraining order for that system. I can't call that number. I can't go to the place. I can't go to any of the meetings that would happen naturally, not necessarily at that building, but anywhere where their association would be relative to the situation from a supervisor or a highway boss. Well, that's not the common. I mean, the common law would be the jury that decides that. So do I have to get ready for jury selection as far as what? Well, that one's more of like a weird one about the 12th and the 11th, but we'll get to why that in the 10th, because not delegated goes back to the power doesn't necessarily mean that they one fall me like that to do a citizen's arrest in this form or bring attention to the model by pinging on it. It's a assault kind of conversation. Yeah, that's harassment, but the difference is here that my timeline is posted about most generally what I think, or video game entries here about doing videos that would ping a file, zip open, and have the proper model if you weren't to be properly orientated as a dipole in an electromagnetic field. So that was like what, the 6th and the 7th. You got the 8th, and I obviously pled my 5th about what it was, but I gotta have more than just, all right, well, you pled me not guilty, now what? Excessive bail shall not be. I didn't have bail. They put it in the newspaper. I didn't even know why. They just said, no bail. You're getting released on your own recognizance, and an Uber will drive you home at our expense. All right, fine. Definitely took me out of bed, did things, showed me in front of the judge in my shorts. For what? I mean, so you handed it. I mean, you had to arrest me for telling me that you called it in to have a restraining order, and the cops have to have a restraining order done by an arrest. I mean, I'm sure an arrest would help the restraining order, but I don't know if it would necessarily be the reason for one completely. The base system of how they responded, what they were predicting, what the consequences of a 3 to 5 year terrorist threat charge with like a $10,000 fine could be. Now, in sense the bail, I wouldn't leave. I just stayed my case. Hey, I'm going to stay in here until the court system, and you feed me at the state's expense, and I'm going to sue you later about what it does when it comes back around if I can get in the right contact with the lawyers. And then you got the 6th, 7th. 7th, 8th, 9th. Not be constrained. Back to denying me it, not giving me my guns. There's an organization in one too that any of these, again, to that math prime number, has to be addressed in the rules of order. You might want to math it out about, like, well, 100 days because each day because you took my guns without the right rights. You told me that, and it was overturned potentially in this example of dismissed with prejudice because I'll need that of the way they handled it. That is get us into the judicial powers of the United States shall not be construed to extend or any, that is to say, like up top, that the Supreme Court would have to hold it on whatever system there is. There would still be a result of the system, but they're saying there's an appeal model to it. That's still the figure 4 built into it. The 11th, again, is a neat one because it's about the power of attorney a little bit too, not just the president's. If you listen to the way it's ambiguously written, if you will, it's not just about Adams in Washington fighting it out for it, which one's in charge. The state is a subjective term to what we're calling president or vice president here, VP, as far as the standards are concerned, because they term an identity element that sets a name in terms of bigger figure 4 to the 10th, or excuse me, the 11th there. Why that math is super critical to a symmetry state, and it's like why you can't necessarily, there's not really 10 or 11 particles, or the guy was like, you got to own a $10,000 fine for making a new particle. Well, we really don't need more of the standard models, but the supersymmetry would work in a lower court to an ethics committee model. And there, you had to have to know that the representation was square, but it still brings us back to some of the quirky natures of respectively or to the people in the 10th, reserved to the state respectively or to the people. And that means that, again, I can still choose to citizen arrest a state official in this model, in this form at least, not necessarily tackle them and hold them down like they stole a goat from the farm, Cedar the goat, but I'll have to push through more of this.